What is up? Welcome back to another episode of In the Cutting Room. In this podcast, we talk all things content and really kind of showing you behind the scenes of creative decision making, how I see creative strategy within ads for consumer brands. And one thing I want to talk about today is the biggest lie marketers have talked about or have said about content, about ads that I think has misdirected so many brands and actually has hurt a lot of brands. I think that this initial statement is said out of good faith and there is some truth to it, but I think taken to the extreme has really misdirected brands. And I want to talk about that today. And you might be thinking, what are you talking about? What is this lie that you speak of? Well, I think the biggest thing that people have talked so much about is biggest lie is drumroll please. It's that these marketers, these D2C marketers have been telling you that you need to make content that looks quote unquote native to the social feed. And what has this resulted in? It's resulted in many people, a lot of people trying to do lo-fi content or follow what is considered quote unquote best practices of a platform. But here's the reality. That's not how the algorithm actually works. The algorithm is there to serve the best content to people so that they stay on the platform as long as possible, period. Social media apps want you to stay on that app as long as possible so they can serve you more ads, and that's their business, right? So ultimately, they're really actually agnostic to how the content was shot. They only care. All that matters to them is that the content is worth watching and that it keeps people on the platform. So you might be wondering, well, to keep it on the platform, there's lots of look at TikTok. Oh my gosh, all of the native feeds and yada, yada, yada. And look at this lo-fi content. That's all you see on TikTok. Well, that's not true. Okay. And I'm here to prove that. I think maybe that could have been true a few years ago when TikTok was really starting to come onto the scene, but now that's not true. It's not a new trend, but it is a trend that had happened on TikTok recently, a month ago or so. And there is this editor who created this video that had a Kendrick Lamar song with this edit that was to the Creed movie footage and went viral. Like, we're talking over 150 million views, like a lot. I want to shout out the creator. It's Arek, Areqaep, Arek. I don't know actually say his name, her name, but I'm going to actually share my screen. If you are listening to this, that's fine. I'm basically going to show you this scene, and it's a quick video. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but I need to show you the fact that this is a video that has gotten over 150 million.
Good looking, baby Creed.
Don't call me that.
Don't call you that. Don't call you what?
You just call me Baby Creed. So don't call me that.
Hey fam, dig this. I was showing you love, man. You ain't got to come off like that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's all love.
I know it's cool. You definitely know it's cool.
Now, who you talking to me? You talking real tough. You feel
You
me?
better talk to your little pretty boy boyfriend, man. Get a VIP pass next to your pop talking to me like this.
What's your name? Creed!
I got 100 on my dash, got 200 in my trunk. Name in the
Bang. All right, I'm going to pause it there. If you haven't seen that and you want to get hyped up, just watch that whole thing, right? So it starts out with this scene in Creed, and then once the beat drops, you've got this edit of Creed boxing to the beat, and it's you're changing different scenes to the cut of the music. It's epic. It's really, really cool, right? This thing takes off. Like, I am talking takes off. And I have seen this video, and then I've seen so many iterations of this. But let's talk about this one video alone, right? This one video that has gotten hundreds of millions of views, right? This one video has done so much. But here's the thing. It's literally broken every kind of quote unquote best practice, right? Like, we've talked about best practices and things like that on TikTok, and this is what you should do, blah, 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 blah. Let me just show you, okay? Take a look at my screen. All right. This is horizontal footage on a vertical screen. Now, of course, I'm sharing on my computer here, but this is horizontal footage. Not like, look at all this black space on both sides. Like, that's crazy, right? Then it's all hi-fi footage, right? It's from a movie. So super hi-fi footage. There is nothing about this that's organic, quote unquote organic, right? Like, what does organic mean at this point, right? I think this kind of proves or starts to break the frame of organic, right? Because this is not from the studio. This is not from, and this is just a guy or girl, I don't know. This is just a person who's just put together an edit. They made this. This is them pushed out. That's it. This is their creativity. That's it. Nobody paid them to do this. Creed didn't use this as a way to, like, for their movie marketing or anything. This is organic, right? This is somebody made this and uploaded it. That's as organic as it gets, right? But it breaks every single idea of how we quote unquote see best practices of organic content on TikTok. And also, it's just a very well edited video, right? We talk a lot about, like, a lot of people say, oh, it's gotta look, like it wasn't done well and all this. Again, very well done. In fact, the reason why it's really good is that it's well edited, right? If you just edited this not to the beat, if you missed a lot of it wouldn't be good. But this thing hits, right? And even at the very beginning, doing that text on screen, that's hard to do. I mean, it's not extremely hard to do, but you got to know, you can't do that in CapCut, right? So this is such a good example of breaking our frame of what is organic. Okay. Now let's tie this back. Let's keep going here. We've shown the video, we've broken down, hey, this is not your typical organic, but here we are. I guess this is organic, right? Like, I would consider this organic content. Like, I just saw this, I found this on the internet. The crazy thing is that people then took that sound and started making edits to other things. Like, they're now making edits of Tiger Woods, Tom Brady, and it's just these epic montages of footage being edited, giving you motivation. But then there's also, like, it's like funny too. Like, people are doing like Timothy Chalamet mixes. There's one of like Creed from like The Office, like Creed, the character from The Office. There's Michael Scott ones. They're hilarious. They're amazing. So there's just so many people have taken this and then have, like, reworked this concept and then made it with other footage, things like that. And it's taken over it, and it's gotten tens of millions of views on some of these other videos. And why does this matter, right? How do we tie this back to content for consumer brands and creative strategy? Well, one, I want to kind of show you that when people are talking about, oh, things need to be organic or organic looking, that's just like not true at all. What it needs to be is good content, period. That's the goal, is to be making good content. That's it. And if you can make good content, and to make good content, maybe you need a nicer camera to make the good content. Maybe you just need an iPhone to make the good content, right? You need to be able to just make good content and find what that is for you as a brand. Now, let's take that a step further. There's a brand that we're working with. We've been working with for over a year now. And literally the best content, the best ads are high production content. We haven't had creator content to work. We've done creator seeding. We've done so many different things, and yet the high production stuff works. Now, if we were being told, "Oh, you have to do lo-fi content because that's what people want on these organic feeds," we would be tanking that brand, right? And so, although I think that there is some value to having creator content and some lower fi content, you definitely need to be pushing that, right? Like you should absolutely do that, right? Like even in this brand, like we've tried it, right? So like we've given it more than a good shot, right? So absolutely do that. But you can't just say like, oh, it's got to be lo-fi or it's got to be a certain way because that's what organic feeds want. No, organic feeds, your customers' feeds, they just want good content. Give them good content. That's what they want. That's what the platforms want as well. Is just good content. That's it. And you got to find a way to make good content that sells, right? And you might use a nicer camera, you might not. But what happens is when brands are focused on these quote unquote best practices for organic, right? When first of all, that those are not even true anymore, right? Like this is such a great example. It's broken every single thing. It's gotten hundreds of millions of views. It's good content, right? But brands get so frustrated when things aren't working. And they're like, oh, well, we've been doing all this content. Like, we're making ugly ads. We're doing all this. Yeah, you're making ugly ads and you're being told that that's what you're supposed to do because that's what's on the feeds. But reality is that you're not testing out so many other styles of content. You're not trying other things because you feel like you're being told that like it has to be lo-fi, it has to be X, Y, and Z. And it's just the biggest lie. It's the biggest lie. Ultimately, you need to be focused on making the best content possible. That's it. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. And I think that like it's like so disappointing when I see brands like just say, "Oh no, we're not going to do that because that's too produced or this that or whatever." Most of the time when you've tested a very produced thing, it also wasn't created out of performance. That's the issue usually, right? The actual issue of high production content is that it was never created with performance in mind. And so when you're testing that against something like that's more lo-fi that only has performance in mind, of course, like that's going to perform better, right? Like it had performance in mind, so that it should perform better. You're not just going to get lucky with a high production thing that has no performance lens to it and it just works, right? So at the end of the day, you need to be focused on good content that's all centered around performance. And you need to be using as many tools as possible to do that. It could be a nice camera. It could be an iPhone. It could be creators. It could be an actor. It could be SAT. It could be video. You've got to figure that out, right? The algorithms are incentivizing great content. And you got to figure out what great content means for you as a brand. And every brand is going to be different, right? Because look, that brand that I'm talking about that's really great with high production, I can show you just as many brands in our portfolio of clients that like high production doesn't work. And that's okay because we create other content that does work for them, right? But we're not focused on like, oh, it has to be high production. No, it just has to work, right? Like I'm in the business of making content that works for brands. That's it. Period. I don't have to have a stance on it. Does it need to look nice? Does it need to look ugly? It doesn't matter. It needs to perform, right? So I have seen so many brands where the lo-fi content outperforms the high production, but I've also seen it the opposite. And so what that means is that you as a brand shouldn't not test certain things because you're being told that you've got to do it one way or the social feeds look like this. Guess what? The social feeds don't look like that. They don't at all. And so you need to be focused on finding what content works for you. That is the most important thing. Now, if you are just starting out, like, yeah, I think UGC can really work well. And it's probably your best bet to start. But over time, like, that doesn't necessarily always have to hold true, right? So you always need to be pushing the boundaries of what's best. What's the best way to communicate your brand? And that can look very different at different stages of your business. Right? So what got you to the first million might be different than the next 10 million versus the 9 figures. And over time, you've got to diversify. You've got to do these things. And it's going to like hurt your brand if you're so focused on it has to be one style, because it doesn't. And you are being told a lie, point blank. So we need to go away from this. It's got to be one style or it's got to be a certain way, and focus more on what's the best way for you to describe your brand story. What's the best way for you? And each brand is going to be different, right? But if you are boxing yourself in because of some tweet about ugly ads, then that's a problem, right? Focus on performance, focus on great content. I can show you even more examples of how whatever I can show you many examples of like, you know, accounts or videos that do very well on organic feeds that break these kind of quote unquote best practices, right? So we need to go away from this idea of that and really, really focus on what matters most, which is really taking the time to understand and develop how do you tell your brand story. And that's going to look different. That is the podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. We've got more podcasts coming every single week. So make sure to subscribe, like, do all the fun things. You can catch me on Twitter, LinkedIn, all that good stuff at Matthew Gattozzi. Thank you so much for listening, watching, all that fun stuff. And I'll catch you in the next episode of In the Cutting Room. All right, y'all. Peace.